So Kelly, tell me, how is God being taken out of America?
Well, first of all, we have a president that will no longer mention his name. He claimed to be a Christian when he took office, but now he's doing everything to take God out of it. For example, the law that was just went on in Indiana, there's controversy about it because people said that it took the rights away from gay people to go into a place and get served because the owner could just simply say, "We're not going to serve you because you're gay," which had nothing to do with it. That wasn't what the law was. The law gave everyone, but in this case particularly religious business owners, it gave them the right to say, "Hey, it's against our religious beliefs to participate in a homosexual wedding," and it gave them the right to go to court. And it doesn't even mean that they would win. It just gave them due process, which is guaranteed to everyone in the Constitution. Also, since 1962 we've had prayer taken out of our school, and the Bible can't be taught in there. And since then, crime, rape, murder, teenage pregnancies have risen by over 100% since then. And if you look at the old days, the biggest problem we had was chewing gum in classes, and now the ones that I just mentioned. And the Constitution, a lot of people misquote it and say that there's a wall of separation of church and state. That phrase is actually mentioned in the Constitution, and it's not true. That phrase came from a letter that Thomas Jefferson wrote to the Danbury Baptist Association, because when he took over as president, they were worried that because the Constitution even mentioned religious freedom, that they thought that this was the government saying, "These are rights we're giving you," and they were worried that somehow the government might someday think that they were the rights that they were given to them and they could be taken away. And Thomas Jefferson said, "No, I believe that that's between a man and his conscience, and therefore it erects a wall of separation of church and state, meaning the government can't interfere with that." And if you look at it, President Washington, Jefferson, Madison, they all asked for national days of prayer. Like the video showed, there was several different times they had church services within the Congress where representatives and public would be at, and it was the largest in DC. And matter of fact, and I don't have the exact quote off the top of my head, but Washington said that anyone that tries to dissect our what we did as a country into where we became, if you try to dissect it and say that religion and morality wasn't part of it, you can't even call yourself a patriot. And that's saying that if Providence hand wasn't involved in it, then you're no better than the people we just broke away from.
So Kelly, how do you think that we can, get God back into America, or fix the problem that is God being taken out of America?
Well, I think the biggest thing that we can do is, one thing that I would like to see done in our lifetime is I really want to see, we always hear about how when it comes to education in particular, that you hear about, we want education reform, where we throw more federal tax dollars into the spending to try to to improve our schools. Well, every time that happens, the schools get worse. That's why our public school system's like it is. And so I would like to see what I call education deform, which is taking government hands off the education and giving back to the state governments, and particularly the local communities, and that allows the parents to make decisions for their kids because they know what's best. And obviously you can't do that right away. You have to slowly get into it. And one thing you can do in the meantime is allow more private vouchers. We had a lot of them in the schools where kids were allowed to go to, or the parents were allowed to choose for their kids to go to these schools, some of these private schools, because they were given money and they got to choose where kids went, and they were excelling. But then the current president and some of his administration has decided that that's not a good thing for whatever reason. And I think when you do that, you will see the Bible brought back into schools, and will no longer, because if you look at it, when they took the prayer out of school, it was because it wasn't what the people wanted, it was what some judicial activists that were sitting on as judges, they thought they knew what was best. They had an agenda and they passed it, which was unconstitutional. What they did was completely unconstitutional. So they can say that they have judged something as a law, and even if Congress writes a law on that, it contradicts what the Constitution says, and I therefore think that new law that they say exists, it doesn't, because it goes against what the Constitution says. So we have the constitutional proof. It's written in the text there. It's written that that we are protected as religious people. I mean, if you look, that's why we were founded. So we should be able to argue that. We need people that can articulate their argument. And the biggest thing we have going against us is we have the media that has been feeding us these lies. But I think if you look at the current state of America now, the majority of people are fed up. They know something's wrong, and they're yearning for truth. So I think now more than ever is the time. Reach out. It's as simple as if you get into a debate about that, you've got to stand on principle. You can't compromise your arguments just to make peace. You don't be mean. You be use your biblical principles. You be sincere, but you stand on principle. But I think if we can reform the education, or deform rather, if we can deform that, get the Bible taught back in school, I think a lot of our problems will be taken care of, and people will see the truth. And you'll allow for true history to be taught, and people will be like, wow, separation of church and state is really not in the Constitution. And so I think that, just talking with them, obviously praying. I think churches need to stand up more. I think a lot of the problems you can lie on the church. They haven't been doing their job, and they've been they're too worried about their the community picnic, and also worried about social issues. And one of the biggest things I think is a problem is when they accepted the tax exempt status, because then that allowed the government to control, saying, well, we're not going to give you that status if you don't conform to a certain way. And you're seeing threats that they're going to lose that status. But honestly, I think that could be the best thing. So I think there are signs in this direction. We're starting to finally see more people, more politicians talking about God, invoking Him. And they're not politicians, honestly. They're just people concerned about their country. So I think there are steps heading in that direction.
Thank you, Kelly.
All right, no problem.